Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another great episode of Basscast Radio. I am your host, Brian Carter, and guys, it's a light night right here at the Basscast Radio. I got Thomas in the studio with me tonight. Hank the Bass Geek's got family in town, so that's really cool. But so we thought we'd just carry on a conversation, and everybody's got a lot going on, and especially here at the Basscast as well. But before we get going, I want to talk about some people who are, making it happen right here at Basscast Radio. And these people right here have got, to be honest, let me find the app. There it is. So if you guys want to download the app to these three channels that are promoting the basscast.com, Basscast Radio, Grove Street Radio right here in Bedford, Virginia. Got a lot of stuff happening there. And they cover everything in Bedford, as well as they have music you can listen to, news. And this week he actually implemented weather on there as well, but it's weather like it's his first video. So that was pretty cool. So Grove Street Radio, Dockside Radio, let you guys know something really cool is coming out from them. Dockside Live is what it's called now. I apologize. They have their app coming out really, really soon that you'll be able to download. They're in the finishing process of that. And the American Angler Outdoors. Like I said, I think they've set it up now, 3 channels. He's got the podcast set up on one channel, live videos where people go out and record themselves fishing and all that stuff on another channel. So he's got it broke up by 3 channels now. It's one of the things, I guess, Thomas, just like all of us, when you're starting something brand new, you're spending a lot of more time tweaking it and trying to, make it so all the numbers work. And Alvin's been working on it pretty daggone hard since it got started. And you guys going to be seeing a lot of Alvin in 2025 at a lot of fishing expos and a lot of great. He's going to be promoting it. I'm hoping to get out. The plan is with Alvin is wherever an expo is, he's trying to get as many people from the show out that, kind of lives close to that expo. So I'm hoping to hang out with him as well as Thomas in 2025 at some expos. Guys, talking about expos, we'll talk about this a second, man. Roanoke is getting his very first fishing expo. I never thought I'd see this thing happening, Thomas.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a Star Hill Fishing Expo next year, 2025. Like I said, is something I never thought that we'd be seeing in Roanoke, Virginia.
Why do you think it took them so long?
I'll be honest with you guys. The gentleman who is doing the expo, he's an expo guy. I guess some people approached him about doing an expo and bringing it a little bit closer to Central Virginia. And like you said, I wonder what it did take people that long to do it, because we do have Smith Mountain Lake. It's 45 minutes away from, the expo. But you kind of wonder, I hope it does really well. I plan on being there. I plan on attending. But it's not really close to anything else. And Roanoke has besides major box stores, there's no real tackle stores in Roanoke, because you're not really going to pass anything there. A lot of the stores in Roanoke are outdoor stores, sportsman's, a lot of hunting. It does have fishing, but it's a lot of I guess you say the Walmart fishing. That's what I kind of call it.
Trout fishing, things like that.
Yeah.
It is weird because it's not it's unique to Virginia and this part of the Mid-Atlantic where you don't have a lot of lakes. If you go from like Kerr Reservoir down, you can throw a rock and hit a reasonable sized body of water you could hold a tournament on. And then once you get to like the Smith Mountain Lake Anna kind of border and you keep going up, you really have sparse water until you get to like upstate New York. Pennsylvania, bone dry for lakes. Maryland really doesn't have anything. And most of Virginia, if I was a quadrillionaire, you could put a nice reservoir around 81 somewhere in that valley area, a really nice one.
Oh, yeah. Guys, the Star City Fishing Expo is February the 7th through the 9th, 2025 at the Berglund Center in Roanoke, Virginia. So please add that date to your calendar. Like I said, I know Missile Bates is going to be there. I've talked to the guys there. And I'm not going to do a booth. I don't know if, I always just hang out with people and pass out stickers because it really doesn't do us any. I've done booths in the past and we really don't do much with them, but we might. I don't know. I don't like expos. I get so tired. Guys, Thomas has got a heck of an expo set up. I mean, he brings what you see right there plus more to an expo.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's kind of what put Fishing the DMV on the map because most people don't have the money sunk into live streaming equipment to go there and to go booth to booth because people do that for iCast. And I think it's funny. Everyone says iCast is the end all be all. And I don't disagree with that. But I feel like people sleep on these small shows in your local community because not everyone travels across country to fish. Most people just fish a local area. And that's the value of a lot of these expos is you get to see the bait makers and the companies that are in your backyard that fish the places you fish.
Yeah, that's true. And, a lot of the guys like we have Deep Throat Jigs, and he makes jigs for the local area. I mean, that's pretty much, he concentrates on a little bit in North Carolina, Bugs Island, Smith Mountain Lake, the James River, areas that he fishes, like you were saying, that are local to our area. And he makes the product in the colors that he believes that, will catch fish. And he's caught fish on in the past. And that's what you're going to find at these local expos. And the cool thing about it is, too, you're going to meet people really that make some very unique stuff at these shows. So go ahead.
Is there too many expos? Are we getting to the point where there's like way too many?
Yes. And I say that because, Augusta County has theirs. It's not very big, but, I think everybody started making these expos to kind of promote their club or promote their organization. And that's how a lot of them kind of came about. I mean, the smaller ones. Now we know, the two big ones in Richmond and North Carolina. I mean, Les, he's an expo guy as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if Les even fishes, to be honest. I don't think he does. I really don't know. I can't speak for that, but he's an expo guy and he knows how to make and put on a good expo. And hopefully you guys show up and hopefully the weather cooperates. That's a big word I'm going to say there because it never does.
How big, if you had to compare I think the big three, I could be wrong here. We'll go Richmond, Raleigh, and then Tennessee. I think you called it like the North Tennessee something show. How would you rank them? Tennessee's number one in size?
I want to say Tennessee is number one in unique product.
Ooh.
Yes. For you guys that have never been to the Tennessee Fishing Expo, you are missing out. Please go. I try to push that as much as possible. I try to push them all, but you're going to find hand-painted crankbaits, jig heads that are, specially painted. A lot of guys that have put Tennessee on the map that only show they actually go to. And the lady who runs the Tennessee show does amazing job. I mean, she is out there hustling like a mofo, passing out bags. And she's, she ain't just sitting in a corner. You're going to see her working the whole time. I think her name's Sheila, I want to say. Don't quote me on that either. But she does a great job. And like I said, the Tennessee show is great. Richmond, I say second, and Raleigh would be third.
Ooh.
The numbers are I went to the Raleigh show last year, and the numbers were down big time, guys. I mean, it was really we were casting down the middle of an aisle that was that empty.
So if you'd like a counterpoint, Les, I had on the show last year, talk about that. The show that he had the most sales, though, was Raleigh because of those wake boats.
Yes.
And that's interesting because, I think the crowds were definitely better at Richmond, but they didn't buy the product that the people down in Raleigh bought, which is, guess what's right next to Raleigh area. So that makes sense. But
right.
It's so interesting how that stuff works out.
But, the product as well, I mean, like you're saying that they bought the wake boats. The money is, there's a lot more money down there on top of that.
Yeah,
I mean,
there is.
Richmond, if you get lucky and you are able to pull in Northern Virginia into that, but you really don't. So I mean, if you take that Doswell area down to where we are, I bet you the medium income for a household family might be $60,000, might between two people, and that's between two people.
Yeah. Virginia is such a weird place because you could almost, if everyone knows their history, we have West Virginia and Virginia that split off, and you could really take Northern Virginia and make it its own place because
Yes.
once you get out of that bubble, it is country. It is a different type of folk. But I grew up in Northern Virginia. I lived there. I was born there for the longest time. It is California 2.0. It is the richest place in the world. That's actually proven. And I think the average income there is like $200,000 or something, just for you to be able to,
Wow.
but they're not outdoorsy people. They're
No.
the casual ones.
I lived in DC for a while back in the 90s. I really did. It was a different DC then. I don't know what's going. I know Danielle and them just went to DC the other day. Actually, they went up Sunday to DC and spent the day in DC. Had a bunch of the tourist stuff, and they love going to the museums. But I used to go downtown on the trails, all the time. And it wasn't. I mean, you might see a rowboat. They spend a lot of time doing that. You might see a couple joggers, bicyclists, but you do not. You're not going to see too many bass boats out there.
And it's weird because like the Potomac River, we all know about that. That it's probably, besides maybe Smith or the James, it's the mecca for our area when it comes to just tournament pressure. But then you have this weird blend of the old guard, which is the outdoors culture, the people that have the bass boats, and then Tiffany, who just moved from California, who just wants to get out on a paddleboard. And it's hard because it's hard to re-educate someone. It's easier to educate someone. And so when you have somebody that's never been in an outdoor kind of lifestyle and you interject them, again, Western Line is a perfect example. Western Line used to be farm pasture. We would hunt and everything. And the more people moved in there trying to have the country lifestyle but weren't used to it, the more it pushed out fishermen and hunters because those people thought that you shouldn't do that.
Right,
you shouldn't harm the fish. And if you do that for 2 or 3 generations, you lose that culture. And I know I don't want to be dour on the show, but that's what I've seen at home. And so it's so important for people that are listening. You got to get out there in your local government, keep fishing programs alive, keep outdoor programs alive. You got to educate the next generation on the importance of this stuff.
Yeah. Like you said, guys, the outdoors, I mean, it's a big industry. It really is. It's huge, but it looks like we're starting to lose people. And it's not really that good. I mean, COVID was bad. There we go. I'm going to be done with that. But at the same time, it was a blessing because it got everybody back outside again.
Mm-hmm.
And it got that whole, the camping vibe again got going on again. And people started buying campers and boats. Now they're all up for sale now if you guys want to buy them because it was so quick for us to go back to that life. I mean, and I don't know why you'd want to run back to it. To be honest, Thomas, I really don't.
Yeah.
We hiked our butts
Yeah.
off. I mean,
I still hike. I hike more and again, I guess I'm more outdoorsy than the regular person, but it is interesting how quick our culture changed from when you shut things down and force people to have a new way of life. They adapted to that. And then when you flick the light switch back on, how many people reverted? That's fascinating to me. It's also interesting that just another thing about like how we catch all these trends and stuff. You and I kind of popped the trend on the kayaking stuff. And it's weird now that I've done this podcast long enough that you have history clips that you can go back to. And that's just one of them that popped out to me is like when we talked about, oh, well, what's going to happen with Torqeedo? Yamaha buys it. And it's like, when are these things going to start looking like bass boats? And then they come out with a bass boat, basically it's plastic. And it's like, good Lord.
I wonder if they were for you guys to do. Hopefully, you guys saw the videos that I posted down at the Tennessee show. There was a boat company down there, and it was a kayak on steroids, and it was about $4,000. Had an electric motor on the back. You had to charge it. Had some amazing. Both seats raised up. You could store all your gear underneath both seats. I think it had a platform you could store. Guys, I was sitting there trying in my head thinking how I could put this in a body of water. That's how bad I wanted this boat because it was just so cool what you could do with it. And like I said, it was definitely for a small lake, small river. But with this new Bonafide, it really is a kayak on steroids. I mean, it's a miniature boat, like you said, Thomas. I mean, what when's the cutoff going to be for that? I mean, what's the price tag going to be when it's going to be a cutoff? Because we're already in $2,000 or $3,000 kayaks.
It's so unique to see how this industry evolved. Where, I mean, let's even take it back to the very beginning. We'll do a quick little recap for people that don't know. Kayak fishing was kind of this meh thing, and then Hobie really, I would say, could be wrong. Let me know in the comment section down below when this thing airs, that Hobie came out with the pedal drive system. It changed the game because now you can actually fish. And then how business and capitalism works, other companies started to catch on. People had other fins. Then you could have pedaling kayaks. Then the Torqeedo came. Hobie decided, like, we're going to keep ours strictly pedal because we're a pedal kayak. It makes sense for us. You want to fish our league. You had the two leagues. Then Hobie this past year was like, you know what? You don't have to just pedal. You can have a Torqeedo too, which I feel like cuts their advantage down. Now everyone has an electric motor. Now everyone has forward-facing sonar. And now you're starting to see the blend of what it actually looks like as a kayak or a raft or a bass boat. And to my question is this a 3D chest of boat companies being like, if we can slowly get these things to look more like plastic boats, like a Pelican, we could save so much money if we just sell a 16-foot Pelican versus a Skeeter, for example.
It's true.
They could cut down on their costs a lot. And another thing that was interesting in my comment section, a YouTuber commented about that photo that I posted of, well, if it's a catch weigh release tournament, or catch measure release, I'm sorry, which is what people do for kayaking, why can't I do that in my John boat? And somebody else commented, like, yeah, why can't I do that in my bass boat? And that brought up an interesting point to me. If catch photo release, it's becoming the norm, spoiler, because the next generation, that's all they're going to know is catch photo release. If that becomes a norm, there's nothing stopping it from just being we're having a tournament on Lake X. Doesn't matter what you have, you can go there. And then, this is the last piece and I'll stop talking. If you do tournament formats like that, who will be the first major organization to abandon the style of tournaments we have now because the cost is almost nothing to put on a digital tournament like that? Nothing.
Yeah.
They would make so much money compared to putting on this big extravagant bass tournament.
We had locally, guys, we had a John boat event here. I'm not sure which direction it ended up going. I didn't really have much to do with it, but he was doing a bump board John boat event. And because he was doing a lot of tournaments on James River, we have a slot limit, but the guys are catching some great looking fish, but you can't bring them in. So why not go to a measure release tournament, 5 fish measure release tournament? And like I said, we have one here. I don't think it kind of fizzled. And, you're talking about that, Thomas, about the next generation. And I always talk about that with the website as well, and try not to make too many tweaks because we're still in a generation of 50 to 65-year-olds that go to basscast.com. I mean, it's starting to pick up the 20 and 30-year-olds. But I wonder how long it's really going to take for that transition to where it's, I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime. I'll be honest. I don't think I'll really, and if I do, it's like at the end of it, because I really don't think we'll see, because people like the camaraderie, people like holding up the fish, people like showing off their catches.
But I agree with that. The counter argument would be a lot of corporations right now are looking at Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They don't care about the millennials because they're the next generation. What are their trends? What are they going to want to buy? I agree with you that this generation now, the 50 to 60-year-olds, they want that camaraderie. They want that system. Purely business, though, you look at everybody else that's 18 to 35 who are trying to have kids that work in the middle of Roanoke or Ashburn in Virginia, and they can't have a boat, and they're kayak fishing. A lot of them, all they know is catch, photo, release. And if you were a business, you got to look like, okay, this demographic here is going to age out. What's next? This whole group coming in, a lot of them culturally, they might be perfectly okay with catch, photo, release. That's fascinating to me to watch that trend because it is a trend. It's whether it takes off or
Mm-hmm.
not is the big thing. It's just I don't know. That's really interesting because I'm gonna tell you, like for the kayak stuff, how they do it for MVKBA and Mid Atlantic or two ones near us, they usually rent out a brewery or a
Mm-hmm.
restaurant, and then they'll have the ceremony right then. They shut it off so you can't see who won, and you guys can all drive to the brewery and have the camaraderie, or you can just go home and they'll mail you the check. So they do have these workarounds with it, but you put on a kayak tournament. Do you think there's less work with a
No,
kayak digital weigh-in versus a catchway release, or I'm sorry,
no,
a live well weigh-in?
no.
Interesting.
It was so bad. It was so bad. The drama was so bad. It
Not the drama,
was,
just the work on the ground.
you know, it, but so, all right. So the work on the ground was probably more. Yes. Because you had to judge the fish, you had to go through everybody's fish, you had to make sure the rules were kept, the right bump board was being used. So there was a lot of rules implemented besides just bringing 5 14-inch fish to the scales. And then it was I don't, they used the wrong board. They didn't read the rules. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. The fish's mouth was open. You've had that issue too, Thomas. I mean,
I've had that issue too.
you sent that to
I've
our
had that
group
issue.
where you lost $1,000 because of it.
Yep.
So I mean, and it happens, and you have to DQ someone, and you're sitting there looking at like, I'm sorry, you just lost $1,000 because your fish, you submitted the wrong fish or something. You know what I'm saying? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, there was just so much with it that it became more of a burden than, you know, everybody shows up at a bass cast tournament. They bring their fish. It gets weighed in. Everybody's watching. Everybody sees the scales if they want to see the scales. If you want to get a reweigh, you can. And then we write it down, put it in the computer, and we announce the winners. I mean, it was just that simple because you didn't have to have the fish closed. You didn't have to have your hand on the fish if the fish was bumping. You didn't have to show the tail on the line. It was just so many. It became, and the thing that killed, if you ask me, that really, really killed it was none of the big boys wanted to get on the same page. It's the same thing that's happened in Major League Fishing, that's happened in Bassmaster. I was in a meeting with, I actually watched the meeting with Hobie, KBF, and Bassmaster, and they really agreed on practically nothing by the time it was all done. A few things changed, but not a lot. And it was like, because just like any other series out there, if you're not fishing, you're not cashing checks. And if you're not cashing checks, you're not making money. And, especially if you have a sponsor on your boat or kayak, and there's a lot of guys out there that do. And, more than a sticker. Hell, I know some people had a wrapped kayak. So, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
So a plug of an interview that it might release by the time. No, it'll release eventually. Shane Flynn Outdoors runs the largest online fishing tournament thing in the world, and how he runs it is he has technology that he can't disclose to me that has AI embedded in it, to where all you need is a bump board. And he allows you to fish from the bank, from a kayak. He doesn't care where. He says there's going to be a tournament that's a month long, a day long, whatever. You submit it. The AI checks everything for him. And then all it does is a couple things pop up on his phone at the end of the day. He's like, double check this stuff. And then he's good to go. And he does that all now by himself. It's completely automated. Now, he said like his system is special and there's patents and stuff for it. But the point is I asked him this, is like, he said the technology is here, and with AI in 5 to 10 years, it will be better.
Oh, yeah.
And that to me is what's interesting is one individual is running, like he had like 10,000 people in a couple of tournaments. Like it's insane. Cause it's all over, it's all over the nation. It's just basically go submit a fish. If one guy can do that, when will Bass be like, God, how much money can we make off this? Like, or MLF. And that's what's interesting to see, this evolution of where we're going to go with this, because Bass Geek has said it before, where if you fish from the bank, you will have you have so many followers because a lot of people just bank fish
Right.
versus if you're in $100,000 bass boat or kayak. When will you make tournaments to be like that where you could just be a bank fishing pro? That could be a thing. And that's a whole other Pandora's box of a market that you
Yeah.
could be tapping into.
That's true. I mean, like I said, with the technology, with Attorney X, Dwayne and what he's done there, I mean, it's come a long way. What's the other one's called? Fish Donkey or something like
Fish
that.
Donkey.
Yeah, Fish
Yeah.
Donkey. So you have that as well. So, I mean, for you guys that are listening up and down the coast, I'm not sure how big this is in Florida, but it probably is pretty big down there because you can fish all year out of a kayak as well. The kayak,
Mhm.
it's huge. It really is, and it's we're at a point now, just like we were with Major League Fishing. If they don't keep changing things and they don't screw it up, it will last. And if they
Yeah.
do, then it's just going to fizzle out like everything else. So, I mean, I hope it doesn't.
Yeah. I
But
think bass will be, you and I are baseball geeks, and baseball has been around for 1,000 years. Baseball will always exist in some way, shape, or form, but it's the size. Bass and its style will always be around.
oh yeah,
It's how big of the market it will take versus another sport coming in. MLF, the unique thing is government. If more and more states really hammer down on how many fish you're allowed to put in your live well, the size limit, all that other crap, that's where MLF or that style has a leg up to where they just have to outlast all of the different states outlawing or banning tournaments. I believe we want to eventually have a show where we talk about a 3 fish limit, maybe as an example.
Yeah.
Well, that would affect a regular tournament. So that to me is fascinating to see with the politics, with all this. Were they just too ahead of the curve? Were they the person that brought an iPhone out in 1980 and it's like you're 20 years too early?
and that can happen. I mean, technology is like you just said. I mean, technology is one of those things where it could definitely happen where something can. It's funny. I'm a big geek on that stuff right there. But Twitter came out with what was that 30-second little video clip thing that Twitter had there for a while?
Vine?
Vine, yeah, Vine.
Yeah.
And they shut it down, and you're like, you just shut down the biggest money maker ever. I mean, now you got two other apps out there. Amazon. You got I don't know why I can't think right now on this one. But you have
Rumble?
you have TikTok.
TikTok?
And you have Clapper. So I mean,
Clapper.
they're the same thing as Vine.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think TikTok's worth like $1 billion. I mean, but Vine was just ahead of its time. The technology wasn't there yet. The speed wasn't there yet. I mean, a lot of guys are still on 4G. Now we're all 5G and whatever else there is out there, and 5G wide and all this other crazy crap. But Vine did not have the technology for some people to load the videos, and now we do have the technology, and I say 98% of all Americans got a cell phone in their pocket now.
That's a whole other Pandora's box we could go to.
Yeah.
No, and just to tell the audience, I have a bass boat, I have a kayak, I fish both because of the area of the country I'm in. Virginia is probably one of the best smallmouth river places on the planet.
Amen.
I'd say top 5. So it makes sense for me to have a kayak. There's a ton of smallmouth river kayak tournaments where I can make a lot of money. So, but I also fish a Bassmaster certified club where if I actually finish the top 2 in the club, I qualify for a Bass Federation championship. So I do both. I enjoy both styles, and I think they both have value. But I don't know. There's so much clutter. When I close my eyes and I write it down, it's like clutter. There's so many things going on in bass fishing right now.
Yeah, the world of bass fishing is upside down. You guys all know that. It was great. I'll tell you guys this. It was really great to have this break and to kind of let the dust settle, and let some of the chatter settle. I have heard during the break, you guys, we broke it here on Basscast Radio a couple weeks ago with one of our guests. Major League Fishing sent out a survey to a lot of their anglers, and they were asking about forward-facing sonar. I'm not going to jump in. We're not going to go into that tonight, but they were talking about that and limiting forward-facing sonar. I'm hearing some rules that are going to come out for 2025. Um, the Tackle Warehouse is looking at bringing their championship back in 2025 as well. And that was one of the things that we broke. So, you know, we're going to see a different bass fishing world in 2025. Plus, we're going to see what happens with Major League Fishing with the reduction in anglers.
Mm-hmm.
I know we all threw a fit this year when Major League Fishing decided not to air day one and day two because they said the boat traffic and they didn't want people to see where they were fishing. And, we all had that debate and we kind of wonder, was it about the money? I mean, they're reducing the field. I mean, you don't really reduce the field unless it's about the money. And then they talked about putting cameras on every boat. A lot of the boats, I think like 80% of the boats next year will all have a camera. So I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to be changing in 2025, and wonder how it's all going to shake out, boys and girls. Really do. I mean, it's going to be a great, it's going to be a great year, but we wonder what's going to happen with that and how many anglers. And I'm hearing the rumor already of anglers ready to come back to bass. A lot of anglers are going to be leaving Major League Fishing next year. So, but I mean, they're and some of the anglers that are going to that know they're going to be cut as well are coming back. So we know that. But
always look at that. Who is making the noise? Who is leaving? Is it your starter or is it the bullpen guy that hasn't gotten out to the bump in about 3 weeks?
Yeah.
And I hate to say it that way, but it's like, people are leaving. And like when that happened the last time, it's like only one of them was decent. Most of them sucked at MLF. So again, I'm hard on MLF, but to give them the benefit of doubt in the court of law, it's not the Jacob Wheelers or the guys that rock at that format that are saying I'm out. It's the guys that are having an issue with it. Or like you said, they might be cut.
But it was also, I will say this, a lot of the guys that did come back were a lot of the guys that left Bassmaster and who did really well when they went to that 5-fish limit format a year ago. Was it a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever they did, when Major League Fishing went back to that for like a year. And then I guess it was last year. And then they come back to every fish counts this year. A lot of the guys left or, got cut, just didn't do really well because, I mean, you figure if you had fished Bassmaster for, let's say, 10 or 15 years, and that's what you had become used to, it's really a mind shift. Go ahead. You go say something. But it's a mind shift. It really is.
I was bringing it back to a baseball analogy because I know everyone just loves that. If you were in a league that you were only allowed to throw straight fastballs, and then all of a sudden you're in a league that you could throw off-speed pitches, and your whole career you just saw a fastball, and all of a sudden this guy's throwing a knuckleball and a curveball. And I think that's what it is. The average every fish count format is a completely different way. National League American, it is. And I don't know, man. I enjoy both. I really do. I think they're both unique. And I still, to this day, will say that a person that can do well in both will be, in my mind, considered the best fisherman of all time. A Jacob Wheeler dominated in every category. It was 5 fish you put in the live well. You catch everyone, none of them. That will always put him above Kevin Van Dam and these other guys in my mind because it's just, that's insane.
You just said the wholly wrong word there.
I did because I don't think there's been a guy that has won this much money like Jacob has done the last couple of years. Him in DC is just, whether you like the format or not, it's impressive that you can habitually stay in the top 1% that long.
It's funny you just brought that up, because I dropped that one story a couple of weeks ago about Patrick Walters and, him being the next KVD. I mean, he's still young and the dude's like, he's belts, wins. The only thing really,
too.
What's that?
He's a good one too. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing he hasn't won yet is a classic, and I mean, his day will come. And he hasn't done it as early as Kevin Van Dam did, but it's different, a little different now. But and then the chatter was, well, go back to the baseball. We're in the middle of the steroid version. It's the steroid season, it's the steroids, because now we have this technology. It's been out for like 10 years. It just got brought to the forefront, but it's the steroid season and they're definitely going to win. They're gotta be better than him.
And what's crazy, bringing it back to something I said earlier about catch photo release versus live weigh-ins and how a generation grew up on that. Is it too short-sighted where the companies and the organizations are nervous because their 60 and 70-year-olds are like, I don't like this, but the McKinneys and all these kids that grew up with it, they're okay with it. And they're your angler for the next 30 to 40 years. But if a guy in his 60s is like, well, I don't like this, we're like, we gotta kowtow to him because he might be here for the next 3 days before he drops over. He's important. But let's really pin it on McKinney. Let's really throw shade at the younger generation of anglers. As an organization, that just feels like that's dumb. Why would you be bad mouthing the next generation of your crop that they're going to be here for 30 or 40 years? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a shift. Shift shakers. We're in the middle of one of those. I mean, it's, we have Brandon Palaniuk. He's like 30 something or something like that. And then we have, like you said, a lot of the older anglers that are Gerald Swindle's age or older. I have to say it like my age, 50 or around that number and older. And we did see, a couple anglers that retired this year. And I know one of them's fishing the National Professional Fishing League. But, it's going to come down where they're going to have to stop. They're going to have to stop, like you said, this harassment of these younger anglers. I know you guys are not liking it. I know you're fuss about it. None of us like watching the back of someone's head. None of us like watching the live scope. It's going to eventually be where you'll watch the angler and the live scope and it'll be on every boat. Technology is getting there now, as in a lot of these lakes that we all go to. Well, they all go to 5G, like I was saying earlier, with the TikTok and all that stuff and Vine, and it was ahead of its time. And now it's going to be where it's going to be catching up, and you'll be able to watch the screen and watch what they're doing and learn from what they're doing. And then in 10 years, with all these new guys coming out of the farm leagues, you kind of call it, the Bassmaster Opens, we're going to see that. And then the Tackle Warehouse Series, we're going to see that transition. And it's just going to be whether you like it or not. I mean, you can either stop watching. I mean, like when Dale Earnhardt passed away, everybody stopped watching because that was their person. Now they're forward-facing sonar, and we don't want to watch that. So a lot of people have stopped watching. And we're in a point now where you're going to have to start catering to these kids again.
And that's you hit on something that's interesting, where I feel like there's some kind of 2 + 2 doesn't make sense. A lot of people are saying they're stopped watching, but then Bass keeps saying like we've hit record viewing numbers.
Right.
So it's like, who's not telling the truth? And listen, I'm not going to name names, but I asked the people, like when the BPT came to the James, and it's like, would you want Bass to come here? And they were like, well, don't tell anyone, but no, because they would move all the fish into one area. I kind of like that they just let them go right there. If I had to pick, that's nicer for my fishery. They won't say that publicly because they're evil. Right. But if they had to vote, they'd be like, yeah, let's put them there because it's kind of nice. They don't move all the fish into one creek over 4 days. And I think that there's a lot of people that do this because this is what happens in politics. They will bitch on Facebook, but they're still going to tune in. They're still going to watch because it's cool when they catch those big ones, And that's the thing I hate the most about this live scope thing. It's the hypocrisy of a lot of these people that aren't passionate enough to say, like, I will turn off, I will cancel my prescription or subscription. You're still going to watch them on the Champlain or St. Lawrence catch 120 pounds of smallmouth that look like freaks because it's cool. So why are you going to then get on Facebook and then bitch about how dare these people use this technology to do this? I don't know.
And you guys all know we talked about it on our I guess it was the last show. We talked about the technology, coming down. I mean, the price is going to start dropping. It's like the old school VCRs, DVD players, all that other crap. I mean, the price is going to come down on this technology where everybody will have it in the next couple of years, and it'd be $2,000 or $3,000, same price as what it is now. I mean, not what it is now, but like what I guess you say the side scan, down scan, and then it will come down. I mean, it has to. It's technology.
And you look at like the kayak world is a great example of this. Because you don't spend $100,000 on the boat, a lot more people can afford forward-facing sonar. So you see a lot of kayaks that have that specific technology. Now, another counter would be like, but there's a lot of kayaks that don't. True. But one thing kayak fishing does better than bass tournaments is they have a schedule that's very balanced, where
Yes.
if you are on the Susquehanna River, you're really not using your scope in 2 feet of water.
Mm-mm.
And that really does give a nice balanced approach, where that is where I think Bass and the BPT could do something about it. And to Bass's credit, there's been a lot of tournaments where we got to see a John Cox with a frog actually do very well. Or in a BPT event, we got to see Jordan Lee do all the frog. If you would make a schedule of like, let's put a couple events that really favor shallow water anglers, that would help a lot of the issues. But again, if you go up north, they're gonna use scope. If you're on Toledo Bend in February, they're gonna use the scope. If you put Kevin Van Dam on a ledge in Kentucky, he's probably gonna win. That's just how this stuff works.
We're going to have to, and come out with a better schedule. I know that's extremely hard because the lakes that they go to are locked in because of the money. It's $50,000, I think, to bring a Bassmaster Elite event to your lake for tourism. Usually it's tourism dollars that pay for it. Chamber of Commerce has paid for it. $30,000 for the Bassmaster Open, if I remember correctly. I think it's what it was at when they came to Clarksville, but it brought a lot of people out. It brought my cousin out I haven't seen in like 5 years just to go see, because she wanted to see what the heck was going on. And so I got to see my cousin. So it's pretty freaking cool. So, I mean, but it brought people out that knew nothing about the world of tournament bass fishing.
And I know you probably already talked about this on the show in a multitude of articles, but Smith Mountain Lake is hosting a big event next year. What is your thoughts on that?
Ooh, I know it's only 30 boats. I got to speak with someone last week about that. And the killer for this one is they're doing it during the middle of the week. So it's going to start like on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and be over with on a Thursday, if I remember correctly. So that's going to kind of hurt things because of the working man. But the Basscast will be there every afternoon. But,
is it good for the fishery? Because I've had people message me both ways. They love it and they hate it.
They hate it because it's going to bring, we already have the Big Bass Tour there. It brings a lot of people to the area. The lake gets pretty blown up as it is. Smith Mountain Lake is a tournament every weekend. Either if it's 5 boats to 100 boats, there's a tournament every weekend. So our lake gets pounded 365 days a year. And I think they really don't want no more people coming. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they don't. It's like where I live, Appomattox. They don't want nothing there. I mean, they're happy their little town and their little flag, and there are a couple little restaurants, and they're happy as crap. Please don't bring any more people. And I think that's the same way with Smith Mountain Lake. But we've got a young Franklin County has got a young group of people, and they want to bring in tourism dollars, and they want to help promote the area. And so they're and none of them fish. I ain't gonna lie. I don't think any of these guys fish. I met all of them, and they look like they've never seen a rod and reel, except for one. But but they're there to help boost the economy, and that's why these big events get brought. And it's just like you having a racetrack down the street. I mean, and it's empty, and you're like, what can we do with it? Oh, let's bring some horse racing. Or let's bring this. I mean, before you know it, then guys, you have to understand that there is not a damn place to stay on Smith Mountain Lake. But if we start having big events, maybe we might get a hotel. I mean, maybe we might get something, even if it's 30 minutes away from the lake. But there really is nothing on Smith Mountain Lake, and they like it.
I'm glad you hit on all those points, because this is something I've been really wanting to talk about for a while. So breaking down that conversation, I've had a couple of people say like, well, there's tournaments there all the time. Our lake gets pressured. That's every lake in the country. No lake is special. So that argument, in my opinion, is out. Every lake is that way. There's a tournament there. Yes, but I've never heard of it. Have you heard of the Hagerstown racetrack? Probably not. Have you heard of Daytona 500? Like,
yes.
The fact is, this is only for clout. You're right. Your thing gets hit hard. This is a moment to say we have built a fishery that is good enough we can show the whole world. I do not want the BPT or bass to come here every year like they do the St. Lawrence. I think every 5 years maybe would be neat when the lake is popping. But when you have the DWR pumping so much money into a lake, having events like this to highlight the success is a way that they give back, because the reason the James River for so long was so good is because it got national attention. And it would be embarrassing if that place started to suck. And once you start putting money into it, you're right. Like, well, we got to keep this good. That would be embarrassing. So it's weird to me, because this is the attention that you need to keep places good, to where the DWR is like, oh, we got national attention. We need to start flipping the bill for even more F1s.
Yeah, that's what I was about ready to say.
Yeah. I've had so many people say, and then we'll get into this, like, I'm trying to start a nonprofit to stock lakes, and they want you to stock a lake and then never tell anyone about it so they can have it to themselves. Well, if you do that on a government standpoint, why would they stock a place and then they never get feedback whether it was good or not? They won't go back there. They won't. So that's not how the system works. Mm-hmm. And so there has to be a balance of, you hit it every year until it's a bloody pulp, and every couple of years, this is a great shining example. And people have said before in my comment section, what about the Big Bass Tournament? That is not the BBT or Bassmasters when it comes to national attention. It's just not. This is an event that will finally put a Virginia lake on the map, to where this shit's good. What we do as a state when it comes to our natural resources and what we can do here, we get to show that off to the whole world. It's our little Olympics. And I think people need to look at the positives there, because they won't go here every year. I don't think the county's going to spend that money every single year to bring them back. No. So enjoy it for what it is, where you get to show off your lake, because we are at the golden era to where we could have highlights of 30-pound bags being caught that you can show your grandkids. Like, that could potentially happen next year, which is pretty freaking cool to say that it happened when I was alive at Smith.
Yeah, because you guys all know we're seeing the 8 and 9 pound fish coming out of Smith Mountain Lake now with these tiger bass. And you figure next year, I wouldn't doubt seeing a 10 pounder come out of there. If we don't see it this year in the fall, in the fall, because we didn't see anything in the spring that big. My weighmaster, Aaron, I think he caught one over 9, if I remember correctly. So, the potential is there. We've stocked. Holy cow. We've probably been stocking for about 10 years now. I mean, it's really been that long. I've been with Danielle for 6, and I know it started before then, the stocking of the tiger F1 tiger bass in Smith Mountain Lake. Mm-hmm. So like you were saying, they're ready to see a return on this investment. And that's what this is going to be. This is going to be a return on their investment. It's going to hopefully sell more fishing license in Virginia. I don't know about boats or nothing, boat rentals. Hopefully it'll help that as well. People just come down here and want to fish, maybe get a chance of a lifetime to catch a 10-pound bass out of a lake, because they saw Major League Fishing catch a couple 9 and 10-pound bass when they're here next year. So, I mean, it's the tourism dollars. That's what it's all about. I mean, I know we don't own the body of water. AEP owns that, guys. Whoops.
And that's a whole other can of worms we get into.
Yeah, but I mean, we really don't own that water at all. I mean, it's, we're lucky and blessed to have it, but we do not. I mean, they could lock the whole thing up right now if they wanted to.
And that's what's important, is the more this becomes a national headline, the more noise anglers make, the more they keep their access to their resource. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Mm-hmm. When I live, basically, Shenandoah River was in my backyard. There was a DuPont settlement because there was a big chemical spill over 10 years that just killed the whole river. And until they got headlines that got in the newspaper saying Virginia killed the Shenandoah River, then the riverkeepers got a phone call from the president and the governor at the time saying, like, what the hell just happened? They didn't give a shit until it got into the newspapers. The national newspapers. Then they're like, oh, wait a minute. Whoops. We just poisoned this whole, that's our bad. We're sorry. We're trying hard. Once you make it a big deal that Smith is a bass fishery, the homeowners associations, it's a lot harder for them to try to clamp that down. It's a lot harder for them to squash the access when everyone knows that this is a big fishery. So it's a double-edged sword with everything in life. Nothing is simple. Nothing is simple, everything is complicated. But this is something that will help keep the fishing there, I think, alive for years to come. And this is why big tournament places like Gunnersville, places like that, when you are in the headline for so long as being a bass fishery, guess what? It's in the cultural zeitgeist down there that the Gunnersville is a bass fishery. We need to do the best to keep it a bass fishery. James River now is one of those places where it's a bass fishery and they're trying to keep it that way. Do you want culturally that for Smith? Maybe you don't, but this is how you keep that fishing culture is you make enough noise in the big news that it just becomes ingrained in Karen psyche down the street. Like, oh yeah, people bass fish here. That's just, it's a part of the culture. And I know so many local anglers that get mad about like, oh, people will know about it. Yes, there are issues with it, but there are also bigger scale things happening that will keep it good for you and your grandkids.
Yeah, like we were talking about it earlier, that life cycle. I mean, really is. You know, we're in that point all the way across the whole entire board of bass fishing. We're in the middle of a new life cycle, and we need to introduce people to Smith Mountain Lake. I mean, our last major event was the Elites right when I started the Bass Cast, and that was in '08 and '09. So we
That's so
really
cool.
haven't. What's that?
That was cool. Like I just memories of that. That was a really cool event.
Yeah, so we really have not had anything of this magnitude here since then. And that's it's been a very, very long time. So I mean,
And you mentioned hotels. I think this format it shouldn't be as much of an issue as it was back then. It's 30
no,
people. They're rich. They're probably going to get an Airbnb or a house. They probably wouldn't be in a hotel anyway.
no.
So
And we didn't have Airbnb during the '08 and '09.
that's true.
And we everybody crashed at someone's house and we all met people. And I ended up crashing at a friend of mine's house and hanging out with a bunch of anglers that I knew. And to be honest, none of them are fishing right now, but that's beside the point. But yeah, so I mean, it was a who and now, like I said, that with technology, Airbnbs, it's going to be a different event. But I think it's going to be great. I really
Hmm.
do. I think it's going to be awesome. I think Major League Fishing does a great job promoting and handling these type of events. Um, they do a great job promoting. I was when I went down to the event down in North Carolina. I actually got to that was my first ever guys event where it wasn't like a Red Crest or a Bassmaster Classic, and man, they did a great job. I mean, they really, really freaking did promote that town. And the town was Mayberry. You had one boat
Hmm.
ramp. I mean, on the river. I don't know why I can't think of it. Was it the News
Melbourne
River? News.
News River. Okay.
Was it the News River? God, I'd have to look it up, guys. But yeah, so I mean, that was, and it had maybe like two boat ramps in the whole daggone little area, and they had a small little boat ramp. But it was, like I said, it was a really cool place, and had it at Boys Side. Welcome to Boys Side Marine and Grill, and that's where they took out of. And it wasn't very big, and then the town itself was a really cool little town. Kind of mind you, Mayberry. It wasn't much to it, but like I said, it was really cool. Edenton, North Carolina. That's where the event was.
Mm.
Sorry about that, guys. Had to go back on my phone when you got so much crap going on. But I mean, it's really cool. And like I said, that was my first one, and it highlighted and hopefully will help Edenton, North Carolina, bring a lot of anglers and shine a light on their tournament and their
And
body of water.
we've been giving MLF some hate today, and I will say like them going to Dale Hollow, only they could go there to show off that place because of that weird slot limit. Smith Mountain Lake, only they really could do that with 30 boats. It's perfect. Like they have such a cool business thing if they would just stop getting in their own way. Where there's so many opportunities for them. Lake Gaston, Roanoke. There are so many lakes that are that size. A 30 boat series like that would just slot perfectly into. Stop trying to be bass. Just do your own thing.
Yeah,
The world is your oyster, man.
that is true. And that's one thing, that you guys all know I'm a big fan of the NPFL and what they do
Yeah.
there. And that's what kind of set NPFL apart from all the rest of them. I mean, they can go to these smaller bodies of water that a lot of us have never, some of us have never freaking ever heard of, and they're not the norm. there's not this Bassmaster schedule where we know we're going to hit these 10 lakes every single year. Maybe we might throw in an extra one that's you guys have never heard of. But for the most part, it's going to be these 8 single bodies of water. And we're going to pretty much play the same schedule. It's almost like NASCAR. You can almost read it. If you're a big NASCAR fan, you can almost like, every track that they're going to for the whole year. I mean, and it's just a repeat. They've already re-signed. I mean, they've re-signed for the next year for the same time, same place, same track.
There's pros and cons to that because I miss the old Bassmaster schedule. There was a section of time in there around 2008 to 2010, I think, where they had one new lake on the schedule, and then they go to like Lake Oahe or in just such cool places. Like, oh, where is this? And even when they went to Lake Havasu, and you get these memories there of Aaron Martin slipping a blackbird pattern or Justin Lucas catching a massive one on the Delta. Like there's so many cool fisheries that it's fun when they go to a new one where I don't care if they have live scope or not. I never heard of this place. I'm going to tune into it. And they still haven't figured out the Western swing, which is beyond me because there's so many cool lakes out there. Neither circuit has cracked the code there. Even every 5 years, just go out there, but nope, still won't do it.
And like Thomas was saying right there, and that's the cool thing about them throwing Smith Mount Lake in for the Major League Fishing in 2025 is to highlight another body of water and a great body of water on top of that, and hopefully they're not going to wreck it, guys. It's not but 30 boats. I mean, it's not like it's nothing, they're not going to wreck it. They're not going to mess it up. And Thomas always talks about taking care of it. And, we kind of wonder about the elite anglers or, to do a better job. I'm rambling there for a second, but do a better job at taking care of the bodies of water than sometimes the locals do.
And I really hate to say it, like, the catch weight release format, if you want to have less fish mortality, that 100% is the better way to go there. So you're not moving all the fish into one state park. You're just putting them right back in. But to give the due to the Bassmaster guys, I don't think the Bassmaster guys have a lot of dead fish. And again, I saw that you clipped this. If you did a study, and I don't think they would because it would make a lot of people butthurt, it would be more of the local anglers, not just the locals, but it'll be a certain set of anglers that will probably have the higher amount of fish kills versus the guys that 1 ounce is $100,000.
Yeah.
Like, those guys probably do generically a better job of taking care of their fish.
Well, guys, wow, great show. Great conversation. Thomas, we have never done one of these before where we just pick a topic and just kind of run with it. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We're coming up on our hour. But like I said, we really appreciate you guys all tuning in. Don't forget, Thomas did reach his goal. So that's pretty freaking awesome. And have you gone over the goal or you're still sitting at what was it, 200 or 100?
Yeah, so basically the goal was at 150 Patreon supporters, we were going to have a couple of big announcements. One of the I'll give 2 out of the 3. Number 1 is we're having a meetup that's going to be happening in about 2 weeks for all my Patreon supporters. Number 2 is we're launching a website at the end of the week, so we'll have a place that we can aggregate everything together, and eventually you'll be able to type in a specific thing like the Potomac River, and all the Potomac River episodes will pop up. The third thing is, if you guys aren't aware, we are starting a nonprofit, and we are now 100 Patreon supporters away from that goal, where I'm going to start the 501c3 paperwork in the next couple of months to get the ball rolling. And I'll make the announcement of the name because that's going to be the big deal in a couple of weeks of what we're going to name that thing. But the idea is with the nonprofit is we want to be able to do fish stockings in certain lakes. And what we'll probably end up doing is as this thing gets bigger, we'll pick lakes from every region of Virginia and Maryland, and we'll do a lottery that year. We'll stock this lake, and then we'll also have the same thing for smallmouth. So that's one big long journey. The other thing is boat ramp and facility restoration. There are so many shitty boat ramps in Virginia and Maryland that, and I'm just going to flat out say it, there are.
Yes.
And that is something we could fix very easily where we'll do a contest where we'll like something like pimp out my shitty boat ramp, take a picture of a bad boat ramp, and if it wins, we could go raise money to go restore that thing and make it kind of nice. And this doesn't have to be just be the Smith Mountain Lakes and the Lake Annas, not because they don't need love, but there are so many other places that the state just overlooks because most of the money goes towards a Lake Anna or a Smith or places like that.
Right.
And I think we could use some help there. And those are the big things right now that we're going to do amongst other things as well. But I have permission from Virginia and Maryland to do supplemental stocking. They're okay with it. So this is a thing that is going to happen. And once we hit 100 more Patreon supporters, we'll be able to generate a decent amount of revenue internally to start some of the projects.
All right, guys. So like I said, make sure you guys become a Patreon member as well. We've got a small Patreon group. It's whopping 3. I appreciate all 3 of you guys. We're rocking it over here. Now, I really just do the show. I ain't gonna lie, guys. I love the show. I love the conversation. I love the guest. It's just really we're all geeks, and that's pretty much what it is. You guys know Bass. We've got the Bass Geek, the main geek, but we're all geeks here. Don't forget. Grove Street Radio. Check us out. If you haven't downloaded that app, please download that app. You will love the app. Even if you don't live in Bedford, Virginia, it's got a lot of cool radio stations on it. News. He's got a lot of great topics. The American Angler Outdoors. You can watch us there. I'm not sure how he's got it set up now. I know he's got different shows in rotation, so you guys can check us out there. And then last but not least, Dockside Live. We're on Dockside Live on Saturdays and Sunday mornings. And we're getting some great feedback from the Floridians. They're loving the show. I actually spoke with Brian before I got on tonight. And he's the owner of Dockside Live. And you guys are loving the show in Florida. And thank you guys for loving the show. We want to do more of these. We want to team up with more cynic people who are looking for a bass fishing podcast. And like I said, we love talking about fishing, and we cover a lot of conversations, a lot of topics. So we keep it pretty much wide open. We do pretty much keep it to bass for the most part. But if you guys are looking for a show, we'd love to talk to you. We'd love to have you and be a part of this. It's something I really, really would like to build out. I was supposed to, Thomas, have my own show about 5 years ago. And it was going to be on a local real radio station. And the guy that I was going to do the show with, which I never met before, so it's going to be pretty daggone weird. We're going to do a hunting / fishing show. And it's going to be all local. And he kind of went over the deep end. There's no other way to say it. So it never came to tuition. But if you guys would like to have a show, just reach out to us and let's team up and let's talk and let's work it out. We're not that expensive. I believe in the McDonald's way. Give me about 25 stations at a reasonable price, and we're all happy and you make money. So I believe the McDonald's way. So reach out to us.
America.
But what's that?
America.
But guys, I appreciate you guys all tuning in. Bass Geek should be, like I said, back with us next week. He had family in town, so that's pretty freaking cool because you guys all know family first. Have a great week, everyone. Thomas, what do you got going on this week? I know we're all going to be watching the storm. It's supposed to come through. When I upload this on Thursdays, like I always do, by that time, we should be getting pretty good dumped on here.
So because of the storm this week, I'm actually uploading less episodes, especially because the Bassmasters are going on, the storm. I said I'm going to hold off on some episodes. We'll have more. I have like a lot now stored up. So probably going to do 3 or 4 next week. I have Chris Brommett scheduled. He won in the James River. He won 2 events this year, which is pretty crazy. That's got to be like a lottery ticket there. Then I also have an episode I've been sitting on for a while, which is the new head of the Black Bass Association for Maryland. He is a cool cat. He comes from a generation. His father was the head of Maryland and now the state of New York.
Wow.
He served on the striped bass in the Atlantic Ocean, paddlefish, and then he lived in Montana doing trout. So he's a cowboy. So he's kind of a fun interview.
That's
so
awesome, dude.
Those guys are cool. Like when I listen to some of these biologists, I'm like, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I get my grades better? Because that's a really cool living.
That is awesome. And I like that Midwest thing, the fly. I
Yeah.
gotta end with this. I gotta wrap it up. But this is so cool. I don't know why, but I got like roped into this thing on YouTube, and it was really cool. I fly fished one time. I tried it. I handed the rod back. It was a little bit more patience than I needed. But this show was really cool because it went around, it highlighted fly fishing stores. And then on top of that, it highlighted the fishery because that store, every fly fishing store has a guide. We have a guide here. We got about two or three, and they would take them to James River, and then they would have a big event to raise money for the James River, and then their sponsors would give away stuff. I think they had like coolers and just a lot of sunglasses and all that crap. They gave it all away, and the money went to that specific body of water, and they just toured around the United States, and it was a really freaking cool show. And I don't know why I just got roped into it, but it was just so cool seeing, like I said, I love a river, and it was just so cool seeing many, many different rivers and watching these guys catch some big old fish. I mean, it's freaking awesome.
That's so cool, dude.
So yeah, it gives me like vibe thinking about it. But guys, thank you for watching. We're gonna wrap it up right there. Have a great night. Like I said, make sure you guys tune in. Thomas got a lot of great shows. He is the king, the podcast king right here in the area. And Bass Geek is our YouTube king. And you guys all know I just cover the tournaments and what's happening right here in the tournament world of bass fishing right here around Central Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So we try to keep you guys up to date, where to fish, what tournaments to fish, lake reports, and all that great stuff. So a lot of great things happening. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Have a great night, everyone, and we will see you all back here next week on Basscast Radio.
Bye.